Imagine discovering in a single moment that your life has been turned upside down. You catch your husband kissing his secretary. You receive the devastating news that you have only weeks to live due to a terminal illness, and to make things even more confusing, find out you're pregnant. Just when everything feels unbearable, the situation worsens. Your husband is living a luxurious new life with his mistress, using your money while completely ignoring your health and the future of the child you're carrying. What would you do? Would you face the little time you have left seeking peace, or use your last strength to deliver an unforgettable lesson to the person who shattered your dreams and abandoned you in your darkest moment? This is the story of Jenna Caldwell. Her gripping narrative, filled with twists and turns, will leave you breathless. Get ready, because this is a story you won't forget. The sprawling skyline of Denver, Colorado, glittered in the late afternoon sun as Jenna Caldwell's sleek black Maserati weaved through the busy streets of the city's business district. At 39, Jenna was the epitome of success. CEO of Caldwell Dynamics, a cutting-edge tech company she had built from the ground up over the past 16 years. Her tailored charcoal suit and meticulously styled auburn hair exuded an air of confidence and authority that had become her trademark in the cutthroat world of business. As she approached the gleaming glass tower that housed her company's headquarters, Jenna's mind wandered to the board meeting she had unexpectedly canceled that morning. It was unlike her to change plans on a whim, but something had been nagging at her for weeks, a feeling she couldn't quite shake. Her husband, Marcus, had been acting strange lately. Late nights at the office, hushed phone conversations, and a growing emotional distance had planted seeds of doubt in Jenna's mind. Pulling into her reserved parking spot, Jenna took a deep breath, steeling herself for what she hoped would be nothing more than paranoia. She hadn't told anyone she was coming in, not even her assistant. The element of surprise, she thought, might reveal whatever it was that had been causing the knot in her stomach to tighten with each passing day. The security guard at the front desk did a double take as Jenna strode through the lobby. "Mrs. Caldwell, we weren't expecting you today," he stammered, quickly standing to attention. Jenna managed a tight smile. "At ease, Brian. I'm just stopping by to pick up some files." The lie rolled off her tongue easily, guilt flickering briefly across her features before she steeled herself once more. As the elevator climbed to the executive floor, Jenna's heart began to race. The doors opened silently, and she stepped out into the plush, carpeted hallway. The floor was eerily quiet, most of the staff having left for the day. Her heels clicked softly as she made her way toward Marcus's office at the end of the corridor. Marcus, her husband of 13 years, had joined the company as director of operations 6 years ago. At the time, Jenna had been thrilled to have him by her side, both in life and in business. Now, as she approached his office door, that excitement felt like a distant memory. Jenna paused, her hand hovering over the door handle. Muffled voices drifted through the thick wood. Marcus's deep baritone and a woman's lilting laugh. Her breath caught in her throat as she recognized the second voice. Lila, Marcus's young, attractive secretary. Time seemed to slow as Jenna pushed the door open. The scene that greeted her was like a punch to the gut, knocking the wind out of her lungs. Marcus, his back to the door, had Lila pressed against his desk. One of his hands was tangled in her long dark hair, the other creeping up her thigh, pushing her skirt higher. Their lips were locked in a passionate kiss, oblivious to the world around them. For a moment, Jenna stood frozen, unable to process the betrayal unfolding before her eyes. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, a tidal wave of emotion crashed over her. Rage, hurt, and disbelief warred within her as she found her voice. "Marcus?" The name tore from her throat, raw and agonized. The couple sprang apart, guilt and shock etched across their faces. Marcus's eyes widened as he took in the sight of his wife standing in the doorway, her normally composed features twisted in anguish. "Jenna, I can explain," Marcus sputtered, hastily straightening his rumpled shirt. Lila, her face flushed with embarrassment, scrambled to smooth down her skirt. "Mrs. Caldwell, I'm so sorry, Save it," Jenna snarled, her voice low and dangerous. She took a step into the office, her entire body trembling with barely contained fury. "How long has this been going on? Marcus moved toward her, his hands held out in a pleading gesture. "Jenna, please, let's talk about this privately. It's not what you think." A bitter laugh escaped Jenna's lips. "Not what I think? I'm not blind, Marcus. I saw exactly what was happening here." She turned her gaze to Lila, who seemed to shrink under the intensity of her glare. "Get out. You're fired." Lila grabbed her purse and practically ran from the room, leaving Marcus and Jenna alone in the heavy silence that followed. Jenna's mind raced, memories of the past few months flashing before her eyes. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the growing distance between them. It all made sense now. She felt like a fool for not seeing it sooner. "How could you do this to me?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "To us, to everything we've built together." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, his expression a mixture of guilt and defiance. "Jenna, you have to understand, things haven't been right between us for a long time. You're always working, always focused on the company. When was the last time you made time for me, for us?" His words hit her like a physical blow. Jenna reeled back, stunned by the audacity of his accusation. "So this is my fault? I built this company from nothing, Marcus. I gave you a position here because I wanted us to work together, to build our future. Together." The room seemed to spin around her as the full weight of the betrayal settled on her shoulders. Jenna's vision blurred, tears threatening to spill over. She took a step toward Marcus, her hand raised as if to strike him, but the sudden movement sent a wave of dizziness washing over her. "Jenna?" Marcus's voice sounded distant, concerned. "Are you all right?" She tried to respond, but the words wouldn't come. The edges of her vision began to darken, and she felt her knees buckle beneath her. The last thing Jenna saw before losing consciousness was Marcus's face, a mix of worry and guilt, as he rushed forward to catch her. When Jenna next opened her eyes, she found herself in an unfamiliar room. The harsh fluorescent lights and antiseptic smell immediately identified it as a hospital. She blinked, trying to orient herself when a gentle hand touched her arm. "Mrs. Caldwell, can you hear me?" A kind-faced nurse came into focus, her eyes filled with concern. Jenna nodded weakly, her throat dry. "What happened?" she managed to croak out. "You collapsed at your office," the nurse explained softly. "Your employees called an ambulance. You've been unconscious for a few hours." As the nurse spoke, the memories came flooding back. Marcus, Lila, the betrayal. Jenna closed her eyes, willing it all to be a terrible nightmare. But when she opened them again, the sterile hospital room remained, a stark reminder that her world had indeed been turned upside down. "Where's my husband?" Jenna asked, surprised by the hint of vulnerability in her own voice. The nurse hesitated for a moment before responding. "Mr. Caldwell is outside, speaking with the doctor. They should be in shortly to discuss your condition." A knot of dread formed in Jenna's stomach at the nurse's words. Your condition. She had assumed her collapse was due to the shock of discovering Marcus's infidelity. But the grave tone in the nurse's voice suggested something more serious. Before Jenna could ask any more questions, the door opened and a gray-haired doctor entered, followed closely by Marcus. Jenna's heart clenched at the sight of her husband, a mixture of anger and hurt washing over her. But as she took in the grim expression on the doctor's face, her personal drama momentarily took a back seat to a new, more pressing concern. "Mrs. Caldwell," the doctor began, his voice gentle but serious. "I'm Dr. Lang. I'm afraid I have some difficult news to share with you." Jenna steeled herself, her years of business negotiations kicking in as she prepared to face whatever was coming. "Go on, Dr. Lang. I can handle it." The doctor nodded, appreciating her directness. "We've run a series of tests and I'm sorry to say that we've discovered a mass in your pancreas. Given its size and location, we believe it to be an advanced stage of pancreatic cancer." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Jenna felt as if all the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. She glanced at Marcus, who had gone pale. His earlier guilt was now mixed with shock and what looked disturbingly like fear. What does that mean?" Jenna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Lang took a deep breath before continuing. "I'm afraid the prognosis is not good. The cancer appears to be in its final stages." He paused. "We estimate you have about 4 weeks left." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. 4 weeks. A month. That's all she had. Jenna's mind scrambled for logic, for control, for any semblance of order. something she had always held on to in boardrooms, in life. But now, even that was slipping away. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a terrifying moment, she feared she might scream or fall apart right there. The world seemed to tilt on its axis as Jenna processed the doctor's words. 4 weeks. A month. It didn't seem possible. How could she go from being a successful, healthy businesswoman to having only weeks to live, in the span of a single day? "There must be some mistake," Marcus interjected, his voice tight with disbelief. "Jenna has always been healthy. She works out, eats well. How could this happen?" Dr. Lang shook his head, sadly. "Unfortunately, pancreatic cancer is often called the silent killer because it rarely shows symptoms until it's in advanced stages. By the time it's detected, it's usually too late for effective treatment." Jenna listened to the exchange as if from a great distance, her mind struggling to come to terms with the shocking news. But as the initial wave of disbelief began to recede, another realization dawned on her. How had she missed the signs? Was it the fatigue she had brushed off as work stress? The dull aches? Her ruthless efficiency had always made her feel invincible. But now, that same detachment had betrayed her. "Doctor," she said, her voice stronger now, fueled by a growing suspicion. "Is there anything else? Any other complications?" Dr. Lang and Marcus exchanged a quick glance, and Jenna knew instantly that there was more to come. "Yes, Mrs. Caldwell," the doctor confirmed, his tone softening further. "In running our tests, we also discovered that you're approximately 3 weeks pregnant." The revelation hit Jenna like a thunderbolt. Pregnant, with Marcus's child. The child of a man who, just hours ago, she had caught in the arms of another woman. The irony of it all was almost too much to bear. She pressed a hand to her stomach instinctively, more out of shock than connection. A life, fragile and new, was beginning inside her, just as hers was slipping away. The cruel timing of it all stole the breath from her lungs. She turned to look at Marcus, searching his face for any sign of the man she had fallen in love with. The man she thought would be by her side through thick and thin. What she saw instead was a mixture of emotions she couldn't quite decipher. Shock, certainly, but also something that looked unsettlingly like calculation. "A baby," Marcus finally spoke, his voice strained. "But with the cancer, what does this mean?" Dr. Lang's expression grew even more serious. "Given the advanced stage of Mrs. Caldwell's cancer and the early stage of the pregnancy, I'm afraid the chances of the baby surviving are virtually non-existent. The cancer will progress too quickly for the fetus to reach viability." Jenna felt as if she were drowning. Each new piece of information pulled her further into the depths of despair. In the span of a single day, she had lost her marriage, her health, and now the future. She never knew she wanted a child of her own. As the full weight of her situation settled upon her, Jenna found herself looking at Marcus, desperately seeking some comfort, some sign that they could face this impossible situation together. But what she saw in his eyes chilled her to the core. There was no love there, no compassion. Instead, she saw a flicker of something that looked disturbingly like relief, quickly masked by a show of concern. In that moment, Jenna realized the betrayal she had uncovered earlier was just the tip of the iceberg. The man she had loved, the man she had built her life and company with, was a stranger to her now. As Dr. Lang continued to explain treatment options and palliative care, Jenna found her mind drifting, already beginning to formulate a plan. She might only have 4 weeks left to live, but she was still Jenna Caldwell, the woman who had built an empire from nothing. And if these were to be her final days, she would make damn sure they counted. With a deep breath, Jenna steeled herself for the battle ahead, not just against the cancer ravaging her body, but against the betrayal and deceit that threatened to tarnish everything she had worked for. As she looked at Marcus's carefully composed face, a spark of determination ignited within her. Let him think he had won. Let him believe she was defeated. Jenna Caldwell had one last play to make, and she intended to go out on her own terms. The days following Jenna's devastating diagnosis unfolded like a surreal nightmare. The pristine walls of Denver General became her new reality, a stark contrast to the sleek, modern office she had called home for so many years. As she lay in her hospital bed, hooked up to various machines monitoring her failing body, Jenna found herself adrift in a sea of conflicting emotions. Anger, hurt, and betrayal warred within her, each vying for dominance. In her troubled mind, the image of Marcus and Lila entwined in his office played on an endless loop, tormenting her even in her fitful moments of sleep. But beyond the pain of infidelity, a deeper, more primal fear gnawed at her core. The knowledge that her time was rapidly running out. Dr. Lang had been brutally honest about her prognosis. The pancreatic cancer had spread aggressively, leaving no room for curative treatment. Instead, they focused on managing her pain and making her as comfortable as possible in her final weeks. The irony wasn't lost on Jenna. She had spent her entire life in control, meticulously planning every aspect of her career and personal life. Now faced with her own mortality, she found herself utterly powerless. As for the pregnancy, it was a cruel twist of fate. The child growing within her, a life she had unknowingly created with a man she no longer recognized, had no chance of survival. Dr. Lang had gently explained that the cancer would progress too quickly for the fetus to reach viability. It was a loss Jenna mourned deeply, grieving for the future that had been snatched away before she even knew it existed. Marcus's reaction to the news had been telling. In the days that followed her hospitalization, he had maintained a careful facade of concern, playing the part of the devoted husband when nurses or doctors were present. But in the quiet moments, when they were alone, Jenna saw glimpses of his true nature, a nature that both frightened and disgusted her. One particularly difficult evening, as Jenna lay curled on her side battling waves of nausea from her latest round of palliative chemotherapy, Marcus sat in the chair beside her bed, his attention focused on his smartphone. "You know," he said, his voice casual, as if discussing the weather, "it's probably for the best that the baby won't make it. Given your condition, it would have been a burden neither of us was prepared for." Jenna stiffened, the callousness of his words cutting through her pain-induced haze. She turned to face him, searching his features for any sign of the man she had once loved. "A burden? That's what you call our child?" Marcus looked up from his phone, his expression a mixture of irritation and feigned sympathy. "Be realistic, Jenna. You're dying. And I'm not cut out to be a single father. It's a blessing in disguise, really." The cold calculation in his eyes sent a chill down Jenna's spine. This was not the man she had married, the partner she had trusted with her heart and her business. This was a stranger wearing her husband's face, a predator waiting patiently for her demise. As the days wore on, Marcus's true colors became increasingly apparent. He spent less and less time at the hospital, always with a ready excuse. The company needed him. He had important meetings. He was working late to keep things running smoothly in her absence. But Jenna wasn't fooled. She knew exactly where and with whom he was spending his time. Lila, Marcus's secretary and now exposed mistress, had become a ghostly presence in Jenna's life, though she never once visited the hospital. A small mercy, Jenna supposed. Her influence was felt in every abbreviated visit from Marcus, in every distracted conversation, in every impatient sigh as he waited for an opportune moment to leave. One afternoon, as Marcus prepared to depart after a perfunctory 30-minute visit, Jenna decided to confront him. "How's Lila?" she asked, her voice deceptively calm. Marcus froze, his hand on the door handle. He turned slowly, his face a mask of practiced innocence. "I don't know what you mean. I haven't seen her since, well, you know." Jenna let out a bitter laugh. "Please, Marcus, don't insult my intelligence. I might be dying, but I'm not stupid. I know you're still seeing her." For a moment, something like shame flickered across Marcus's features, but it was quickly replaced by a hardness Jenna had come to recognize all too well. "What do you want me to say, Jenna? That I'm sorry? That it was a mistake?" "It wasn't. Lila understands me in a way you never have. She supports me. She's there for me." "When was the last time you put me first, huh? It's always been about the company, about your success." The words hit Jenna like physical blows, each one chipping away at the foundation of what she had thought their marriage to be. "I built that company for us, Marcus. Everything I did was for our future." Marcus scoffed, his handsome features twisting into an ugly sneer. "Your future? You mean I was just along for the ride, wasn't I? The trophy husband you could parade around at corporate functions. Well, guess what, Jenna? I'm done playing that role. Lila sees me for who I really am. not just as an accessory to your success. With that, he stormed out of the room, leaving Jenna alone with the beeping machines and the weight of her shattered world. As tears slid silently down her cheeks, she found herself wondering how she could have been so blind. How she could have missed the signs of Marcus's growing resentment and dissatisfaction. The next few days passed in a blur of pain, both physical and emotional. Jenna's condition continued to deteriorate, the cancer spreading its insidious tendrils throughout her body. Marcus's visits became even more sporadic, and when he did show up, he was distant and distracted, clearly going through the motions of playing the concerned husband. It was during this darkest period that a beacon of light entered Jenna's life, in the form of her younger sister, Elise. Unlike Marcus, Elise was a constant presence, her warm smile and gentle touch providing comfort when Jenna needed it most. Elise had flown in from Portland the moment she heard about Jenna's diagnosis. At 36, she was the free spirit of the family, an artist who had never quite understood Jenna's drive for corporate success, but who had always supported her sister unconditionally. "Oh, Jenna," Elise sighed one afternoon, gently stroking her sister's thinning hair. "I wish you had called me sooner. You shouldn't have had to face this alone." Jenna managed a weak smile. "I'm not alone. I have you now." Elise's eyes filled with tears. "Always. But I meant, where's Marcus? He should be here, supporting you through this." The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken accusations. Jenna had been careful not to reveal the full extent of Marcus's betrayal to her sister, not wanting to burden Elise with her marital problems on top of everything else. But in that moment, looking into Elise's concerned eyes, the dam broke. Through choked sobs, Jenna poured out the whole sordid tale, catching Marcus with Lila, his callous reaction to her diagnosis and pregnancy, his increasingly cruel behavior. Elise listened in shocked silence, her expression morphing from disbelief to anger to fierce protectiveness. "That bastard," Elise hissed when Jenna had finished. "How dare he treat you like this, after everything you've done for him?" Jenna closed her eyes, suddenly feeling every one of her 39 years, and then some. "It doesn't matter anymore, Elise. None of it does. I'm dying. And Marcus is just waiting for it to be over so he can move on with Lila and inherit everything." Elise's eyes flashed with determination. "No, I won't let that happen. There has to be something we can do. Some way to make him pay for what he's done to you." For the first time in weeks, Jenna felt a spark of her old fire ignite within her. She looked at her sister, a plan already beginning to form in her mind. "Maybe there is," she said slowly, "but I'll need your help." As Elise eagerly leaned in to hear Jenna's idea, neither sister noticed the figure lurking just outside the hospital room door. Marcus stood frozen, his face a mask of shock and growing panic. He had come to make another of his brief obligatory visits, only to overhear the tail end of the sisters' conversation. His mind raced as he quietly retreated down the hallway. He had assumed Jenna was too weak, too defeated to pose any threat to his plans. But the fire he had heard in her voice, the determination, it was clear. He had underestimated her. Pulling out his phone, Marcus quickly dialed a familiar number. "Lila," he whispered, "we need to talk. Things are getting complicated." Back in the hospital room, oblivious to Marcus's eavesdropping, Jenna and Elise continued to plot. For the first time since her diagnosis, Jenna felt a sense of purpose, a reason to keep fighting, even as her body failed her. "Are you sure about this?" Elise asked, her voice a mixture of concern and admiration. "It's a big risk." Jenna nodded, a grim smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I'm dying, Elise. What have I got left to lose? And if I can make sure Marcus doesn't profit from my death, if I can leave some kind of legacy, well, that's worth any risk." As the sisters bent their heads together, refining the details of their plan, the hospital room felt charged with a new energy. Jenna might be losing her battle with cancer, but she was determined to win the war against Marcus's betrayal. The next few days saw a flurry of activity, all carefully orchestrated to avoid Marcus's increasingly suspicious gaze. Elise became Jenna's proxy, making calls, arranging meetings, and gathering the necessary documents. All the while, Jenna's condition continued to worsen. Her once vibrant body, now a pale shadow of its former self, Marcus, for his part, seemed to sense that something was amiss. His visits, while still infrequent, took on a nervous energy. He asked probing questions about Jenna's treatment, about her conversations with the doctors, about her plans for the company. Each time, Jenna feigned weakness and confusion, playing into his assumption that she was too far gone to be a threat. It was during one of these visits that Marcus finally showed his hand. Jenna had just endured another round of grueling tests, her body racked with pain and nausea. As she lay in her hospital bed, trying to find a position that didn't hurt, Marcus cleared his throat awkwardly. "Jenna," he began, his tone falsely sympathetic. "I've been thinking, with your condition, well, we need to discuss the future of the company." Jenna cracked open an eye, regarding him warily. "What about it?" Marcus leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with barely concealed eagerness. "I think it's time we talked about transferring control to me. You're in no condition to make decisions, and the board is getting nervous. It would be for the best if I took over as CEO, effective immediately." For a moment, Jenna was tempted to laugh at the sheer audacity of his request, but she held it in. Instead, she adopted a confused, slightly dazed expression. I don't know, Marcus. It's all so complicated. Can we talk about this later? I'm so tired." She felt the bitter taste of defeat rise in her throat, not because she was surrendering, but because she had to make it look real. Lying still while watching the man who had betrayed her circle like a vulture was more painful than the cancer itself. Yet she endured it, every word a dagger, every breath an effort. This was the price of the trap. Frustration flashed across Marcus's face before he could mask it. Of course. Rest now. We'll discuss it when you're feeling stronger." As he left the room, Jenna allowed herself a small, grim smile. Let him think she was defeated. Let him believe his victory was assured. The trap was nearly ready to spring. That evening, as Elise helped Jenna with her dinner, a pitiful meal of bland hospital food she could barely keep down, they received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Lang entered the room, his face grave. "Mrs. Caldwell," he said softly, "I'm afraid I have some difficult news." Jenna and Elise exchanged a look of alarm. "What is it, doctor?" Elise asked, gripping her sister's hand tightly. Dr. Lang took a deep breath. "The latest tests show that the cancer has spread more aggressively than we anticipated. I'm so sorry, but we now estimate you have less than 2 weeks left." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Jenna closed her eyes, letting the reality of her shortened timeline wash over her. When she opened them again, there was a steely determination in her gaze. But beneath that steel, a wave of grief crashed through her. 2 weeks. Not even enough time to say goodbye properly, let alone to find peace. For a brief moment, her chest tightened, not with fear but with sorrow for everything she would never see, never fix, never feel again. Then, she swallowed it down. There was still work to do. "Thank you for your honesty, Dr. Lang," she said, her voice stronger than it had been in days. "Could you please ask my husband to come in? There are some things we need to discuss." As the doctor left to fetch Marcus, Elise turned to Jenna, her eyes wide with concern. "Are you sure about this? We could wait, try to buy more time." Jenna shook her head. "No, Elise, it's now or never. Marcus needs to believe he's won, that I'm too weak to fight back. This is our best chance." When Marcus entered the room a few minutes later, he found Jenna propped up in bed, looking frail but composed. Elise stood by her side, a silent pillar of support. "Marcus," Jenna began, her voice trembling slightly. "Dr. Lang just told me. I don't have much time left, weeks, maybe days." A flicker of something, relief, excitement, passed over Marcus's face before he schooled his features into an expression of sorrowful concern. "Oh, Jenna, I'm so sorry. What can I do?" Jenna reached out a shaking hand to him. "You were right about the company. I'm in no condition to lead anymore. I think it's time we transferred control to you." Marcus's eyes widened in surprise and poorly concealed triumph. "Are you sure? I mean, of course, if that's what you want, I'll take care of everything, don't worry." As Marcus launched into a discussion of legalities and board meetings, Jenna caught Elise's eye over his shoulder. Her sister gave an almost imperceptible nod. The wheels were in motion. Marcus, in his eagerness to claim his prize, had walked right into their carefully laid trap. That night, after Marcus had left with promises to start the transfer process immediately, Jenna lay awake in her hospital bed. The pain was constant now, a dull roar punctuated by sharp spikes of agony, but for the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of peace. She thought of the life growing inside her, the child that would never have a chance to be born. She thought of the company she had built, of the people who depended on her for their livelihoods. She thought of Marcus, the man she had loved, and of Lila, the woman who had stolen him away. As dawn broke over Denver, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Jenna made a silent vow. She might be leaving this world, but she would do so on her own terms. Marcus and Lila might think they had won, but Jenna Caldwell had one last move to make, and it would be legendary. As the days crawled by, Jenna's condition deteriorated rapidly. The vibrant, commanding presence that had once dominated boardrooms and charity galas was now a fading memory. Her once lustrous dark hair fell out in clumps, leaving her scalp patchy and vulnerable. The weight melted off her frame, leaving her cheekbones sharp and prominent against her sallow skin. The hospital room, with its sterile white walls and the constant hum of medical equipment, became her entire world. Despite the physical toll, Jenna's mind remained sharp, even as she struggled to reconcile herself with her dire situation. Each morning she woke to the same crushing realization: she was dying. Her time measured not in years or even months, but in mere weeks. Possibly days. The unfairness of it all threatened to overwhelm her at times. She had worked so hard, sacrificed so much, only to have it all snatched away just as she was reaching the pinnacle of her success. One particularly difficult morning, as Elise helped her sister sit up in bed, Jenna caught sight of her reflection in the window. The gaunt, pale face staring back at her was barely recognizable. "I don't understand," Jenna whispered, her voice cracking. "How did this happen? I had my whole life ahead of me, Elise. The company was thriving. Marcus and I were talking about starting a family. And now it's all gone." Elise's heart broke for her sister. She gently squeezed Jenna's hand, searching for words of comfort, but finding none that didn't sound hollow in the face of such profound loss. As Jenna grappled with her mortality, Marcus's true nature continued to reveal itself in increasingly shocking ways. While his wife lay dying in the hospital, Marcus wasted no time embracing a lifestyle of excess and indulgence, with Lila by his side. It was Elise who first uncovered the extent of Marcus's betrayal. One afternoon, while Jenna dozed fitfully, Elise decided to swing by the Caldwell residence to pick up some personal items for her sister. As she pulled into the circular driveway, she was startled to see Marcus's car parked haphazardly near the entrance, alongside an unfamiliar red sports car. Approaching the front door, Elise heard the unmistakable sounds of laughter and music floating from within. She hesitated for a moment before using her spare key to let herself in. The scene that greeted her left her momentarily stunned. The usually immaculate living room looked like the aftermath of a wild party. Empty champagne bottles littered every surface, discarded clothing was strewn across the furniture, and the air was thick with the smell of expensive cigars. In the center of it all stood Marcus, clad only in silk boxers, his arm draped possessively around a scantily clad Lila. "What the hell's going on here?" Elise's voice cut through the room like a whip. Marcus and Lila jumped apart, their faces a mixture of shock and guilt. "Elise," Marcus stammered. Reaching for a nearby robe, Marcus muttered, "We were just what?" Elise spat, her eyes blazing with fury. "Celebrating while my sister wastes away in the hospital? How dare you?" Lila, at least having the decency to look ashamed, quietly slipped out of the room. Marcus's demeanor, however, quickly shifted from guilt to defiance. "Look, Elise, I know how this looks, but you don't understand. Jenna and we've been over for a long time. She was always too busy with the company to notice. But Lila gets me." Elise felt a wave of disgust wash over her. "Gets you? That's how you justify this? Jenna gave you everything, Marcus. She made you who you are, and this is how you repay her?" Marcus's face hardened. "Jenna didn't make me. If anything, she held me back. Always the perfect CEO, always in control. Well, now it's my turn. The company will be mine soon, and Lila and I can finally live the life we deserve." Elise could hardly believe what she was hearing. The man before her bore no resemblance to the charming, supportive husband Jenna had described over the years. This was a stranger, a parasite who had latched onto Jenna's success and was now prepared to suck her dry. "You're pathetic," Elise hissed, turning to leave. "Jenna will hear about this. I promise you that." Marcus's laughter followed her out the door. "Go ahead. Tell her. What difference does it make now? She'll be gone soon, and everything she worked for will be mine. The drive back to the hospital was a blur for Elise, her mind reeling from what she had witnessed. How could she tell Jenna about this ultimate betrayal? How much more heartbreak could her sister endure? As it turned out, Jenna's capacity for pain was far from exhausted. When Elise hesitantly recounted what she had seen, Jenna listened in stony silence, her face a mask of anguish and rage. I knew, Jenna said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Deep down, I think I always knew he was capable of this, but seeing him with her in our home, it makes it real in a way I wasn't prepared for. Elise moved to comfort her sister, but Jenna held up a hand, stopping her. No, Elise, I don't need pity. What I need is justice. Marcus thinks he's won, that he'll walk away with everything I've built, but he's underestimated me for the last time. There was a fire in Jenna's eyes that Elise hadn't seen since before the diagnosis. It was a glimpse of the old Jenna, the unstoppable force that had built an empire from nothing. But before Elise could respond, Jenna's face contorted in pain, her hands flying to her abdomen. Jenna, what's wrong? Elise asked, panic rising in her voice. The baby. Jenna gasped, her eyes wide with fear. Something's wrong with the baby. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Doctors and nurses rushed in and out of the room, their faces grim as they worked to save the tiny life growing inside Jenna. But in the end, it was a battle they couldn't win. Dr. Lang delivered the news with genuine sorrow in his eyes. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Caldwell. We did everything we could, but the stress on your body was too much. You've lost the baby. Jenna lay still, her gaze fixed on the ceiling, as silent tears tracked down her cheeks. The child she had only just learned about, the flickering spark of hope in the darkness of her diagnosis, was gone. It was a loss that cut deeper than she could have imagined, a grief that seemed to hollow her out from the inside. Elise stayed by her sister's side through the night, holding her hand as Jenna alternated between bouts of silent weeping and fits of rage. It's not fair, Jenna would whisper, her voice raw with emotion. That baby was innocent. It didn't deserve this. As dawn broke, casting a pale light through the hospital window, Jenna fell into an exhausted sleep. Elise watched her sister's chest rise and fall, marveling at the strength that still resided within Jenna's failing body. The loss of the baby marked a turning point for Jenna. In the days that followed, Jenna seemed to retreat into herself, spending long hours staring silently out the window or scribbling furiously in a notebook she refused to let anyone see. Her conversations with the medical staff became curt and businesslike, focused solely on pain management and end-of-life care. Marcus, when he deigned to visit, was met with a cold indifference that seemed to unsettle him more than any display of anger ever could. Jenna would fix him with an unblinking stare, her once expressive face now an impenetrable mask, as he fumbled through awkward attempts at small talk. It was during one of these visits that Jenna began to hint at her plan for revenge. Marcus had been droning on about some minor crisis at the office, clearly fishing for information about the company's operations, when Jenna interrupted him. You know, Marcus, she said, her voice deceptively casual, I've been thinking a lot about legacy lately, about what we leave behind when we're gone. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Oh, what do you mean? Jenna's lips curved into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I mean, what's the point of all this success, all this wealth, if it doesn't make a difference in the world? I've decided I want my legacy to be more than just a successful company. I want to leave something meaningful behind. A flicker of alarm crossed Marcus's face. What are you saying? Jenna, you're not thinking of doing anything drastic with the company, are you? Jenna waved a hand dismissively. Oh, don't worry, Marcus. I know you'll take good care of the company after I'm gone. I'm talking about something bigger, something that will really make people remember the name Jenna Caldwell. Marcus swallowed, his voice faltering. He looked at her, really looked, faintly aware this wasn't the broken woman he expected. That realization seemed to unnerve him more than any accusation ever could. The look of barely concealed panic on Marcus's face was almost comical. Jenna could practically see the wheels turning in his head as he tried to decipher her cryptic words. It was all she could do to keep from laughing out loud as Marcus stammered through a response. Jenna caught Elise's eye across the room. Her sister gave an almost imperceptible nod, a silent acknowledgement that their plan was progressing perfectly. That night, after Marcus had left and the hospital had settled into its nighttime routine, Jenna asked Elise to help her to the small table by the window. Her legs were weak, barely able to support her diminished weight, but she insisted on sitting up. As Elise guided her, Jenna's body trembled, not from pain but from the surge of purpose pulsing within her. It was as though drafting that notebook had awakened the fiercest part of her spirit, one not yet silenced by disease. "Are you sure about this, Jenna?" Elise asked, concern evident in her voice. "You should be resting." Jenna shook her head, a determined glint in her eye. "No time for rest, Elise. There's too much to do, and not enough time to do it." From beneath her pillow, Jenna produced the notebook she had been scribbling in for days. She opened it, revealing pages filled with her neat, precise handwriting. "This," she said, tapping the notebook, "is my legacy, my final act." Elise leaned in, her eyes widening as she scanned the pages. "Jenna, this is incredible, but can we pull it off? There's so much to arrange, and your condition." Jenna reached out, grasping her sister's hand with surprising strength. Her grip was fierce, an unspoken promise that she may be dying, but she would not fade quietly. "We have to, Elise. It's the only way to make sure Marcus doesn't win, to make sure everything I've worked for doesn't go to waste." As the sisters bent their heads together, going over the details of Jenna's plan late into the night, a sense of purpose seemed to infuse new life into Jenna's failing body. Her eyes shone with a fierce determination, her mind as sharp as ever, despite the fog of pain medications. In that moment, it was clear. Jenna Caldwell wasn't going to go quietly into the night. She was going to leave this world on her own terms, with a bang that would shake Marcus's world to its very foundations. The next few days saw a flurry of activity, all carefully orchestrated to avoid arousing Marcus's suspicions. Elise became Jenna's hands and feet, making discreet phone calls, arranging meetings with lawyers and financial advisors, all under the guise of helping Jenna get her affairs in order. Marcus, for his part, seemed to grow more nervous with each passing day. His visits became shorter and more infrequent, his eyes darting around the room as if expecting to find some hidden threat. It was clear that Jenna's cryptic comments about her legacy had rattled him more than he cared to admit. One afternoon, as Jenna dozed fitfully, she was roused by the sound of hushed but heated voices just outside her door. Cracking open an eye, she saw Marcus engaged in what appeared to be an intense argument with Lila. "You promised me," Lila hissed, her face flushed with anger. "You said once she was gone, we'd have it all. The money, the company, everything." Marcus glanced nervously at Jenna's door before responding. "And we will. But we have to be patient. Jenna's up to something. I can feel it. We need to be careful. Play our cards right." Lila's eyes narrowed dangerously. "I've been patient, Marcus. I've waited while you played the dutiful husband, but I'm tired of waiting. If you can't deliver on your promises, I will." Marcus cut her off, his voice low and urgent. "Just trust me, okay? A few more days, that's all we need. Then everything will be ours." As the couple moved away, their voices fading down the hallway, Jenna allowed herself a small, grim smile. Let them plot and scheme, she thought. They have no idea what's coming. That evening, as Elise helped Jenna with her meager dinner, the sisters discussed the final details of their plan. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Elise asked, her voice tinged with worry. "Once we set this in motion, there's no going back." Jenna nodded, her eyes blazing with fierce determination. "I'm sure, Elise. Marcus and Lila think they've won. That they'll walk away with everything I've built. But they're about to learn that you don't cross Jenna Caldwell and get away with it." As night fell over Denver, casting long shadows across Jenna's hospital room, there was a palpable sense of anticipation in the air. Jenna lay back in her bed, her body weak but her mind sharp as ever, going over every detail of her plan one last time. She thought of Marcus, probably celebrating his imminent windfall with Lila at that very moment. She thought of her company, the empire she had built from the ground up, and all the people who depended on it for their livelihoods. She thought of the child she had lost, a future stolen before it had even begun. And as she drifted off to sleep, Jenna Caldwell smiled. Tomorrow, she knew, everything would change. Tomorrow, she would have her revenge. The early morning light crept through the hospital room window, casting a soft glow on Jenna's gaunt face. Despite the ravages of her illness, there was a newfound serenity in her expression as she opened her eyes to greet another day. It was a day that, by all medical predictions, she shouldn't have lived to see. Yet here she was, defying the odds, her indomitable spirit refusing to yield to the cancer that consumed her body. Jenna slowly sat up, wincing at the now familiar pain that radiated through her entire being. She glanced at the chair beside her bed, where Elise had fallen asleep, her sister's face etched with worry, even in slumber. A wave of gratitude washed over Jenna. In these darkest hours, Elise had been her rock, her confidant, her partner in what was to be her final, most important endeavor. "Elise," Jenna called softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Wake up, sis. We've got work to do." Elise stirred, blinking away the remnants of sleep. "Jenna, are you okay? Do you need anything?" Jenna managed a small smile. "What I need is for you to help me to that chair by the window. It's time we go over the plan, one last time." As Elise carefully helped Jenna into the chair, mindful of the tubes and wires that had become part of her sister's existence, she couldn't help but marvel at Jenna's resilience. Here she was, literally at death's door, yet still strategizing, still fighting. Once settled, Jenna took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "You know, Elise, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, about my life, about everything I've achieved, and everything I've lost." Elise sat down across from her sister, leaning in to hear Jenna's soft words. "What do you mean?" Jenna's gaze drifted to the window, looking out over the Denver skyline. "I built an empire, Elise, from nothing. I took risks, made sacrifices, poured every ounce of my being into Caldwell Innovations. And for what? To have it all slip away in the blink of an eye?" "You've accomplished more than most people do in a lifetime," Elise reassured her. "You should be proud." Jenna shook her head slowly. "Pride isn't the issue. I am proud of what I've built. But I realize now that I lost sight of what really matters along the way. I was so focused on success, on proving myself, that I neglected the most important things in life." "Like what?" Elise prompted gently. "Like family," Jenna replied, reaching out to squeeze her sister's hand. "Like love. Real, unconditional love. Not the facade I had with Marcus." She paused, a flicker of pain crossing her face at the mention of her husband's name. "I thought I had it all, you know? The successful career, the loving husband, the perfect life. But it was all an illusion." Elise's heart ached for her sister. "Jenna, you couldn't have known. Marcus fooled everyone, not just you." "Did he, though?" Jenna mused, her tone thoughtful. "Looking back, I can see the signs, the little comments, the growing distance between us. I was just too busy, too caught up in my own world to notice." She gestured to herself, to the hospital room that had become her world. "And now it's too late to change any of that." Elise leaned forward, her eyes blazing with intensity. "It's not too late, Jenna. That's what this plan is all about, isn't it? Your legacy? Your final statement to the world." A spark of the old Jenna, the fierce businesswoman who had taken the tech world by storm, flashed in her eyes. "You're right, of course. It's not too late to make things right, to ensure that everything I've worked for doesn't go to waste." As the sisters delved into the intricacies of their plan, Elise couldn't help but reflect on her own journey over the past few weeks. She had always been the free spirit of the family, the artist who had never quite understood Jenna's drive for corporate success. But now, watching her sister face death with such courage and determination, Elise felt a newfound respect and admiration for her. "You know," Elise said during a lull in their discussion, "I've always been in awe of you, Jenna. Your strength, your drive, but these past few weeks you've shown a level of courage I never knew existed." Jenna looked at her sister, surprise evident in her features. "Me? Elise, you're the one who's been here every day, supporting me, helping me. I couldn't have done any of this without you." The sisters shared a moment of understanding, years of unspoken emotions passing between them in a single glance. It was a bittersweet realization that it had taken these tragic circumstances to bring them closer than they had ever been. As they resumed their planning, the contrast between Jenna's growth and Marcus's moral decay became increasingly apparent. While Jenna was finding new depths of strength and purpose in her final days, Marcus seemed to be sinking further into a pit of greed and selfishness. This became painfully clear later that afternoon, when Marcus made one of his increasingly rare appearances at the hospital. He sauntered into the room reeking of expensive cologne and carrying a bouquet of flowers that seemed more for show than any genuine sentiment. "Jenna, darling," he said, his voice dripping with false concern. "How are you feeling today?" Jenna fixed him with a steady gaze, her face unreadable. "I'm dying, Marcus. How do you think I'm feeling?" Marcus had the grace to look uncomfortable for a moment before recovering his composure. Now, let's not be so negative. The doctors might be wrong. There's always hope, right?" Elise, watching from the corner of the room, had to stifle a disgusted snort. The hypocrisy of Marcus's words was astounding, considering she had seen firsthand how he was already living it up with Lila, eagerly anticipating Jenna's demise. Jenna, however, remained calm. "Hope, Marcus? Is that what you're clinging to? Hope that I'll miraculously recover, or hope that I'll be gone soon so you can move on with your life?" Marcus's facade cracked for a moment, a flicker of panic crossing his face. "Jenna, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm here for you. I always have been." "Save it, Marcus," Jenna said, her voice tired but firm. "We both know the truth, but it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what happens next." Marcus leaned in, his interest piqued. "What do you mean? What happens next?" Jenna allowed herself a small, enigmatic smile. "You'll see soon enough. Now, if you don't mind, I'm feeling rather tired. Elise can show you out." As Elise practically shoved Marcus out of the room, Jenna closed her eyes, conserving her energy for the tasks that lay ahead. She had seen the greed in Marcus's eyes, the barely concealed anticipation. It only strengthened her resolve to see her plan through to the end. Over the next few days, Jenna threw herself into the final preparations for her grand finale. Despite her weakening body, her mind remained sharp, meticulously going over every detail. Lawyers were consulted, documents were drawn up and signed, all under the watchful eye of Elise, who ensured that every T was crossed and every I dotted. One evening, as Jenna pored over some final paperwork, Elise broached a subject that had been weighing on her mind. "Jenna," she began hesitantly, "I know we've been focused on making sure Marcus doesn't profit from all this, but have you given any thought to forgiveness?" Jenna looked up, surprise evident on her face. "Forgiveness? For Marcus?" Elise nodded. "I know it sounds crazy, given everything he's done, but I worry about you carrying all this anger and hurt with you." Jenna was quiet for a long moment, considering her sister's words. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but resolute. "Elise, I appreciate your concern, and maybe in another life, another situation, forgiveness would be possible. But this isn't about me holding on to anger. It's about justice." "Justice?" Jenna nodded. "Yes, justice. Not just for me, but for everyone Marcus would hurt if he got his hands on the company. For all the employees who have poured their hearts and souls into Caldwell Innovations. For the future that was stolen from me. From us." Her hand drifted unconsciously to her stomach, a gesture that didn't go unnoticed by Elise. "I understand," Elise said softly. "I just want to make sure you're at peace with all of this." Jenna reached out, grasping her sister's hand. "I am, Elise. More at peace than I've been in a long time, actually. This plan, it's not just about revenge, it's about setting things right. About leaving a legacy that means something." As the sisters lapsed into thoughtful silence, the true weight of Jenna's words hung in the air. This wasn't just about punishing Marcus or protecting her assets. It was about something much bigger, much more profound. In the days that followed, Jenna's physical condition continued to deteriorate, but her spirit seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour. She met with her lawyers, making last-minute adjustments to her will and other legal documents. She had long, intense phone conversations with trusted members of her company's board, ensuring that her wishes would be carried out to the letter. Through it all, Elise remained by her side, a constant source of support and strength. She ran errands, made calls, and acted as a buffer between Jenna and the outside world, including Marcus's increasingly frantic attempts to gain information about Jenna's plans. One night, as a rare Denver thunderstorm raged outside the hospital windows, Jenna asked Elise to help her to the chair by the window one last time. As lightning illuminated the sky, casting dramatic shadows across the room, Jenna turned to her sister with a look of serene determination. "It's all set," Jenna said softly. Everything is in place. Now we just have to wait for the right moment. Elise nodded, a mix of emotions playing across her face. Are you sure about this, Jenna? There's no going back once we set things in motion. Jenna reached out, taking her sister's hand in her own frail one. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Elise. This is my legacy. Not the company, not the money, but this final act, it's how I'll be remembered. As the storm continued to rage outside, mirroring the tumult of emotions within the hospital room, Jenna began to outline the final details of her plan to Elise. It was audacious, borderline outrageous, and yet so perfectly Jenna that Elise couldn't help but smile, even as tears welled in her eyes. Marcus and Natalie think they've won, Jenna said, a hint of her old fire gleaming in her eyes. They're probably already planning how they'll spend my money, how they'll run my company into the ground, but they're about to learn a very important lesson. What's that? Elise asked, though she already knew the answer. Jenna's lips curved into a smile that was part triumph, part bittersweet acceptance. That you don't cross Jenna Caldwell and walk away unscathed, not in life and certainly not in death. As the night wore on, the sisters continued to talk, their conversation drifting from the specifics of the plan to broader, more philosophical topics. They discussed life and death, love and betrayal, the nature of forgiveness, and the power of justice. It was a night of reckoning, of coming to terms with the past and embracing an uncertain but purposeful future. By the time the storm had passed and the first light of dawn began to creep over the Denver skyline, both Jenna and Elise felt a sense of peace and readiness. Whatever came next, they would face it together, united in their determination to see Jenna's final vision become a reality. As Elise helped Jenna back into her hospital bed, Jenna caught her sister's hand, holding it tightly. "Thank you, Elise," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "For everything. I couldn't have done any of this without you." Elise felt tears prick her eyes as she squeezed Jenna's hand in return. "That's what sisters are for," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "We're in this together, all the way to the end." As Jenna drifted off to sleep, exhausted but content, Elise took up her usual vigil in the chair beside the bed. She watched her sister's chest rise and fall with each shallow breath, marveling at the strength and resilience that still radiated from Jenna, even in her weakened state. In that quiet moment, as the city outside began to stir to life, Elise made a silent vow. She would see Jenna's plan through to the end, no matter what. It was more than just a promise to her sister. It was a commitment to justice, to setting right the wrongs that had been done, and to ensuring that Jenna's legacy would be one of triumph rather than tragedy. As the sun rose over Denver, casting a warm glow through the hospital room window, Elise felt a surge of anticipation building within her. The stage was set. The players were in position, and soon, very soon, the final act of Jenna Caldwell's extraordinary life would begin. Little did Marcus know, as he went about his day, reveling in his perceived victory and dreaming of the wealth that would soon be his, that his world was about to be turned upside down. Jenna Caldwell might be leaving this world, but she was determined to do so on her own terms, leaving behind a legacy that would resonate long after she was gone. The countdown to Jenna's grand finale had begun, and Denver would never be the same again. The final days of Jenna Caldwell's life unfolded like the last act of a grand opera, each moment laden with significance and emotion. The hospital room, once sterile and impersonal, had become a command center of sorts, with Elise orchestrating the last pieces of Jenna's intricate plan under her sister's watchful, albeit increasingly tired eyes. As Jenna's physical strength waned, her mental acuity seemed to sharpen. She spent hours in hushed conversation with Elise, going over every detail, anticipating every possible contingency. It was as if her impending mortality had granted her a clarity of purpose that transcended her failing body. "Remember, Elise," Jenna whispered one evening, her voice barely audible over the constant hum of medical equipment. "Timing is everything. Marcus needs to believe he's won, right up until the very last moment." Elise nodded, her face a mask of determination. "Don't worry, sis. I've got it all under control. Marcus won't know what hit him." A ghost of a smile played across Jenna's lips. "I wish I could be there to see his face when it all comes crashing down." The sisters shared a bittersweet laugh, both acutely aware that Jenna's time was rapidly running out. As the days ticked by, Marcus's visits became more frequent, his facade of concern barely masking his impatience and greed. Each time he entered the room, his eyes would dart around, searching for any sign of the mysterious plans Jenna had hinted at. "How are you feeling today, darling?" he would ask, his voice dripping with false sweetness. Jenna would fix him with a steady gaze, her once vibrant green eyes now clouded with pain but still sharp with intelligence. "I'm dying, Marcus. How do you think I feel?" Her blunt responses seemed to unsettle him, and he would quickly change the subject, prattling on about trivial matters, while clearly fishing for information about the company or her estate. One afternoon, as Marcus was mid-sentence in another of his transparent attempts to glean information, Jenna cut him off. "Marcus," she said, her voice surprisingly strong, "I want you to know that I've made some decisions about the future of the company and our assets." Marcus's head snapped up, his eyes gleaming with barely concealed interest. "Oh? What kind of decisions, dear?" Jenna allowed herself a small, enigmatic smile. "You'll find out soon enough. Just know that I've done what I believe is best for everyone involved." The look of mingled greed and apprehension on Marcus's face was almost comical. As he left the room that day, Elise could practically see the wheels turning in his head, no doubt already planning how he would spend his anticipated windfall. Little did he know that Jenna had one last card to play, and it was about to turn his world upside down. As Jenna's condition deteriorated, the hospital room became a revolving door of lawyers, financial advisors, and trusted board members. Each meeting was brief, conducted in hushed tones, with Elise standing guard to ensure Marcus didn't interrupt. One evening, after a particularly intense session with her legal team, Jenna turned to Elise with a look of weary triumph. "It's done," she said softly. "Everything is in place. Now we just have to wait." Elise took her sister's frail hand in her own, squeezing it gently. "You've done it, Jenna. No matter what happens next, you've won." Jenna's eyes filled with tears, a mix of relief and sadness washing over her. "I just wish I could be there to see it all unfold." As the sisters sat in companionable silence, the weight of the moment settled around them. They both knew that Jenna's time was drawing to a close, but the knowledge that her final act was set in motion seemed to bring her a sense of peace. The next few days passed in a blur of pain management and quiet preparation. Jenna's condition declined rapidly, her once robust body now a shadow of its former self. Yet even as her physical strength ebbed, her spirit remained unbroken, her mind focused on the task at hand. On what would prove to be her final night, Jenna asked Elise to help her sit up in bed. As the sisters faced each other in the dim light of the hospital room, Jenna reached out to cup Elise's face in her trembling hands. "Elise," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need you to promise me something." Elise leaned in, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Anything, Jenna, you know that." Jenna took a shaky breath before continuing. "Promise me that you'll see this through to the end. No matter what happens, no matter how Marcus reacts, you have to make sure my plan is carried out exactly as we discussed." Elise covered Jenna's hands with her own, her voice fierce with determination. "I promise, Jenna, I won't let you down. Marcus will get exactly what's coming to him." A smile, radiant despite her weakened state, spread across Jenna's face. "I know you won't let me down. You never have." Jenna paused, her expression growing serious. "And Elise, thank you for everything. I couldn't have asked for a better sister or a truer friend." The sisters embraced, years of unspoken love and support passing between them in that single precious moment. As they pulled apart, both wiping away tears, there was a sense of completion, a circle closing. Jenna settled back against her pillows, suddenly looking very small and very tired. I think it's time for me to rest now," she said softly. Elise nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She helped Jenna lie down, tucking the blankets around her with gentle care. As Jenna's eyes fluttered closed, she murmured almost to herself, "Give him hell, sis." Those were the last words Jenna Caldwell ever spoke. She slipped into unconsciousness shortly after and passed away peacefully in the early hours of the morning, with Elise holding her hand until the very end. The news of Jenna's death spread quickly through the hospital and beyond. Despite the early hour, it wasn't long before Marcus arrived, his face a carefully composed mask of grief that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Oh, my darling Jenna," he lamented, his voice just a touch too loud to be genuine. "How will I go on without you?" Elise, her eyes red-rimmed from a night of crying, but her spine straight with resolve, fixed Marcus with a cold stare. "Spare me the theatrics, Marcus. We both know you've been waiting for this day." Marcus's facade cracked for a moment, a flicker of anger, and something that might have been fear, crossing his face before he regained composure. "How dare you, Elise? I love Jenna. I'm devastated by her loss." Elise let out a bitter laugh. "Save it for the cameras, Marcus. Your act might fool the world, but it doesn't fool me. Jenna knew exactly who you are and what you've been up to." Before Marcus could respond, a tall, distinguished-looking man in an expensive suit entered the room. "Mr. Caldwell," he said, his voice crisp and professional. "I'm Jonathan Reeves, Mrs. Caldwell's attorney. I'm here to discuss the reading of the will." Marcus's demeanor changed instantly, his feigned grief giving way to barely concealed eagerness. "Of course, Mr. Reeves. When can we proceed?" Reeves consulted his watch. "The reading is scheduled for 2 p.m. this afternoon at our offices. All relevant parties have been notified." As the attorney left, Marcus turned to Elise, a smug smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Well, it seems we'll soon see what Jenna's final wishes were. I'm sure she would have wanted the company and our assets to be in capable hands." Elise met his gaze steadily. "Oh, I'm sure we'll all be very interested to see what Jenna had planned, Marcus. Very interested indeed." The hours leading up to the reading of the will passed in a blur of activity. News of Jenna Caldwell's death had made headlines, with tributes pouring in from across the business world and beyond. Jenna had been more than just a successful CEO. She had been a pioneer, a philanthropist, a woman who shattered glass ceilings and inspired countless others to follow in her footsteps. As 2 p.m. approached, a small group gathered in the opulent conference room of Reeves & Associates law firm. Marcus sat at the head of the table, exuding an air of entitlement and barely contained excitement. Sarah, his mistress-turned-girlfriend, sat beside him, her hand possessively placed on his arm. Elise took a seat opposite them, her face a mask of calm determination. A few key members of Caldwell Innovations' board of directors were also present, their expressions a mix of grief and apprehension about the company's future. Jonathan Reeves entered last, carrying a thick folder and a small box. "Thank you all for coming," Reeves began, his voice solemn. "We are here today to read the last will and testament of Jenna Elise Caldwell. Before we begin, I must inform you that Mrs. Caldwell made some significant changes to her will in the weeks leading up to her passing. These changes have been verified and are legally binding." Marcus shifted in his seat, a flicker of unease crossing his face. "Changes? What kind of changes?" Reeves held up a hand. "All will be revealed in due course, Mr. Caldwell. Now, let us proceed." As Reeves began to read through the preliminary sections of the will, Marcus's impatience grew visibly. He drummed his fingers on the table, his eyes darting between the lawyer and the mysterious box he had brought in. Finally, Reeves reached the section detailing the distribution of Jenna's assets. Marcus leaned forward, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "To my husband, Marcus Caldwell," Reeves read, his voice steady. "I leave the following items." Marcus's smile widened, his hand already half extended as if to grab his prize. But what came next wiped the smug expression from his face in an instant. Item 1. A silver hand mirror engraved with the following message: "Look closely at the man you've become." Reeves pulled an ornate mirror from the box and slid it across the table to Marcus, who stared at it in confusion. Item 2. A fine bone china plate, completely empty. Another item was produced and placed before Marcus, who now looked increasingly bewildered and angry. And finally, item 3, a sealed letter to be read aloud at this gathering. Reeves handed Marcus a cream-colored envelope. With shaking hands, Marcus tore it open and began to read, his voice growing more strained with each word. "My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, then I am gone, and you are no doubt eagerly anticipating your windfall. I'm sorry to disappoint you, my love, but I'm afraid you'll find your inheritance to be somewhat lacking. The mirror I've left you is not for vanity, but for reflection. I hope that when you look into it, you'll see what I finally saw in those last weeks. a man consumed by greed, willing to betray not just his wife, but his own integrity. The empty plate symbolizes the hunger that has driven you, a hunger for wealth, for status, for power. It will remain empty, Marcus, just as your pursuit of these things has left you empty inside. As for my company, my money, all the things you've been so eagerly awaiting, I'm afraid you'll be sorely disappointed. I've left specific instructions that you are to be immediately removed from any position within Caldwell Innovations. Your access to all company assets and accounts has been terminated. Furthermore, I've arranged for 80% of my personal wealth to be distributed among various charities and nonprofit organizations. The remaining 20% will go to my sister Elise, who has shown me the true meaning of love and loyalty. I hope you understand, Marcus, that this is not an act of revenge, but one of justice. You chose to betray our vows, to discard the life we built together in favor of your own selfish desires. Now you must face the consequences of those choices. I could say that I forgive you, but the truth is, I pity you. You had everything: a loving wife, a successful career, a life of privilege, and you threw it all away for a fleeting affair and the promise of easy wealth. I hope that one day you'll look in that mirror and see not just the man you've become, but the man you could have been. Perhaps then you'll understand the true cost of your actions. Goodbye, Marcus. May you find whatever it is you're looking for, though I fear it will forever elude you. Jenna. As Marcus's voice trailed off, the room fell into stunned silence. He looked up from the letter, his face a mask of shock and fury. This can't be legal. She can't do this to me. Jonathan Reeves cleared his throat. I can assure you, Mr. Caldwell, that everything outlined in Mrs. Caldwell's will is entirely legal and binding. She was of sound mind when she made these changes, and they've been verified by multiple witnesses. Marcus turned to Sarah, his eyes wild. Did you know about this? Did you have any idea? Sarah, who had been uncharacteristically quiet throughout the proceedings, slowly stood up. Her face, which had been a picture of shocked disbelief, suddenly hardened into a cold mask. No, Marcus, I didn't know, she said, her voice flat. But I suppose it doesn't really matter now, does it? Marcus reached for her hand. What do you mean? We're in this together, remember? We had plans. Sarah jerked her hand away, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. Plans? Oh, Marcus, our plans were based on you inheriting Jenna's fortune. Without that? She shook her head, a look of disdain crossing her features. Let's be honest, you have nothing to offer me now. Sarah, please, Marcus pleaded, his voice cracking. You can't mean that. We love each other. Sarah's laugh was cold and mirthless. Love? Don't be naive, Marcus. I loved the lifestyle. You promised me power, the money. But you were just a means to an end. She gestured at the mirror and the empty plate. Now you're nothing but a failed investment. With that, Sarah turned on her heel and strode out of the room, leaving Marcus staring after her, his world crumbling around him. Elise, who had been watching the scene unfold with a mixture of satisfaction and pity, finally spoke up. Well, Marcus, it seems you've reaped what you've sown. I hope it was worth it. Marcus rounded on her, his face contorted with rage. You helped her do this, didn't you? You turned Jenna against me. Elise stood, drawing herself up to her full height. Jenna didn't need any help seeing you for what you really are, Marcus. You did that all on your own. All I did was support her final wish to ensure that justice was served. As Marcus sputtered and raged, threatening lawsuits and retribution, Jonathan Reeves calmly gathered his papers. Mr. Caldwell, I suggest you take some time to process this information. If you have any questions about the legality of Mrs. Caldwell's will, I'd be happy to address them at a later date. For now, I think we're done here. One by one, the other attendees filed out of the room, leaving Marcus alone with his meager inheritance, a mirror reflecting his own haunted face, an empty plate symbolizing his insatiable greed, and a letter laying bare the consequences of his betrayal. As the door closed behind the last person, Marcus slumped in his chair, the full weight of his actions finally crashing down upon him. He picked up the mirror with trembling hands, staring at his reflection. For the first time, he saw what Jenna had seen. Not the charming, successful man he'd always thought himself to be, but a hollow shell of a person consumed by greed and selfishness. The empty plate seemed to mock him, a stark reminder of the feast he'd been anticipating, now turned to ashes in his mouth. And Jenna's letter, her words echoed in his mind, each syllable a dagger to his heart. For a moment he tried to tell himself it was unfair, tried to summon the indignation he once wielded so easily, but the mirror didn't lie. The truth stared back at him with hollow eyes and a lost man's silence. As the reality of his situation sank in, Marcus buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with sobs. He had lost everything: his wife, his lover, his wealth, his status, and most importantly, his self-respect. In his blind pursuit of more, he had ended up with nothing. Meanwhile, across town, Elise stood in Jenna's office at Caldwell Innovations, looking out over the Denver skyline. She held a framed photo of herself and Jenna taken years ago at the company's grand opening. Jenna's smile in the picture was radiant, full of hope and determination. "We did it, sis," Elise whispered to the photo, tears welling in her eyes. "You got your justice. I just wish you could be here to see it." As she set the photo back on the desk, Elise's gaze fell on a stack of documents, the plans Jenna had put in place for the company's future. With Marcus removed from power, and the majority of Jenna's wealth going to charity, Caldwell Innovations was poised for a new chapter, one that would honor Jenna's legacy of innovation and social responsibility. Elise took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. She might not have Jenna's business acumen, but she had her sister's determination and moral compass. With the help of the board members Jenna had trusted, Elise would ensure that Caldwell Innovations continued to thrive and make a positive impact on the world. As the sun began to set over Denver, casting a warm glow over the city, Elise couldn't help but feel that Jenna was still there in some way, watching over everything she had built. The thought brought a small smile to her face. "Rest easy, Jenna," she murmured. "Your legacy is safe, and Marcus, well, he got exactly what he deserved." Across the city, in a modest apartment he'd hastily rented, Marcus sat alone, surrounded by the meager remnants of his former life. The mirror Jenna had left him sat on the coffee table, its accusatory gleam a constant reminder of his downfall. As night fell, Marcus picked up the mirror once again, staring at his reflection. The man looking back at him was a far cry from the confident, successful businessman he had once been. His eyes were hollow, his face haggard with the weight of his choices. For the first time since Jenna's death, since the reading of the will that had shattered his world, Marcus felt the full impact of what he had lost. Not just the money or the status, but the love of a woman who had believed in him, supported him, and given him everything. A woman he had betrayed in the worst possible way. As tears began to roll down his cheeks, Marcus finally understood the true meaning of Jenna's parting gift. The mirror wasn't just a tool for vanity, it was a window into his soul, forcing him to confront the person he had become. The empty plate, still sitting untouched on his kitchen counter, was a stark reminder of the emptiness of his pursuits. All the wealth and power he had craved now seemed hollow and meaningless. He had read Jenna's letter so many times that he had memorized every word. Each sentence was an indictment of his actions, a reminder of the love he had thrown away and the trust he had betrayed. As the reality of his situation truly sank in, Marcus felt a wave of remorse wash over him. For the first time, he saw his actions not through the lens of his own desires, but through the pain he had caused Jenna. The weight of his betrayal, the depth of his selfishness, hit him with full force. "I'm sorry, Jenna," he whispered to the empty room, his voice choked with emotion. "I'm so sorry." But apologies, he realized, came far too late. Jenna was gone, and with her, any chance of redemption or forgiveness. Marcus was left alone, with the consequences of his choices, facing a future far different from the one he had envisioned. As the night wore on, Marcus remained in his chair, the mirror clutched in his hands, forced to confront the harsh truth of who he had become. It was a reckoning long overdue, a painful but necessary step toward understanding the true cost of his actions. In her final act, Jenna had not only secured justice for herself, but had also given Marcus the one thing he never knew he needed: a chance for genuine self-reflection, and perhaps someday, redemption. As dawn broke over Denver, casting its light on both Elise in Jenna's office and Marcus in his sparse apartment, the city stood on the brink of a new day. Caldwell Innovations, under Elise's guidance, was poised to continue Jenna's legacy of innovation and philanthropy. Marcus, stripped of everything he had once valued, faced the daunting task of rebuilding not just his life but his very character. And somewhere, perhaps, Jenna Caldwell looked down on it all with a mixture of satisfaction and hope. Her final plan had been executed flawlessly, ensuring that justice was served and her legacy protected. But more than that, she had set in motion a chain of events that might, in time, lead to growth, change, and perhaps even redemption. In life, Jenna Caldwell had been a force to be reckoned with. In death, she had proven to be just as formidable. Her story, her struggle, and her ultimate triumph would be remembered not just as a tale of revenge, but as a powerful reminder of the enduring strength of the human spirit and the ultimate triumph of justice over greed. In the weeks following the reading of Jenna Caldwell's will, Denver buzzed with activity. The shocking turn of events had captivated the city, sparking conversations in coffee shops, boardrooms, and everywhere in between. Jenna's final act of justice had become a modern-day parable, a cautionary tale about the perils of greed and the power of integrity at Caldwell Innovations. The atmosphere was one of somber determination. Elise, thrust into a leadership role she had never anticipated, worked tirelessly to ensure her sister's legacy would not only survive but thrive. The board members Jenna had trusted rallied around Elise, providing guidance and support as she navigated the complexities of running a major corporation. One crisp autumn morning, Elise stood before the assembled employees of Caldwell Innovations, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. "My sister believed in this company," she began, her eyes scanning the sea of faces before her. "She believed in each and every one of you. And now it's up to us to honor her memory by continuing her vision." The announcement of Jenna's philanthropic bequests sent shockwaves through the nonprofit world. True to her word, 80% of her considerable personal wealth had been distributed among a carefully selected group of charities and organizations. The Jenna Caldwell Foundation, established posthumously, became a beacon of hope for causes ranging from education and healthcare to environmental conservation and technological innovation. In Denver, the impact was immediate and profound. The local children's hospital received a substantial endowment, allowing them to expand their facilities and hire top-tier specialists. A struggling inner-city school district suddenly found itself with state-of-the-art computer labs and a fully funded arts program. The city's largest homeless shelter was able to triple its capacity and launch a comprehensive job training initiative. Margaret Chen, the director of a small nonprofit focused on providing STEM education to underprivileged girls, wiped tears from her eyes as she read the letter informing her of a multi-million-dollar grant from the Jenna Caldwell Foundation. This changes everything," she whispered, her mind already racing with the possibilities. "We can reach so many more girls now. Jenna's legacy will live on through every young woman we help." As news of these donations spread, the true magnitude of Jenna's generosity began to sink in. She hadn't just secured justice for herself. She had leveraged her success to create lasting, meaningful change in countless lives. The narrative surrounding Jenna shifted from that of a wronged businesswoman to a visionary philanthropist who had used her final act to make the world a better place. Meanwhile, Marcus Caldwell's world continued to crumble around him. The man who had once strode confidently through the halls of power now found himself shunned and isolated. Former friends and business associates avoided his calls, unwilling to be associated with the scandal that now surrounded him. Invitations to galas and charity events, once a constant in his life, dried up completely. One afternoon, as Marcus trudged down Lincoln Street, head down and collar turned up against the chill wind, he overheard a snippet of conversation from a nearby cafe. "Can you believe that Caldwell guy?" a young woman was saying, her voice dripping with disdain. "Cheating on Jenna like that and then expecting to inherit everything? Talk about karma." Her companion nodded vigorously. "I know, right? And did you hear about what Jenna did with her money instead? My cousin's kid goes to that school that got the new computer lab. It's amazing what she's done for the community." Marcus quickened his pace, his cheeks burning with shame. It seemed everywhere he went,